Monster Hunter Wilds. Finally, the beta is out on PC, and this game feels amazing. Of course, everything is early game, and as we all know, the end game is very different in Monster Hunter. But the foundation is there. The combat feels good, and the move set for each weapon also feels really good. Definitely took some time to get used to
Oh my god.
not being able to wire bug out of a knockdown, but it's fine.
Whoa, what the?
The wound system, though, is amazing. I've heard lots of people say that Wilds is missing that impact feeling you get from Worlds when you hit a heavy attack, but you definitely get a taste of it when exploiting a monster's wound. And while playing as Bo, I realized these wound marks just show up randomly during some of the encounters. Eventually, we found out that most bosses have a specific wound point that becomes available, usually during one of their attacks or after an attack and they're in a cooldown state. The biggest offender is Ray Dao. Ray Dao. There are moments after he does a big lightning attack from his horns where they move upwards to cool down.
Probably now, right?
I think I got him.
This opens a wound spot, but you have to be quick because it only lasts a few seconds. If you manage to hit the spot with a wound attack, you'll usually put Ray into a knockdown state. You don't seem to get the big damage that comes from doing a normal wound attack, but knocking down a monster is just as good. The other monster that has this kind of interaction is Balahara. When he spews stuff, oil, tar, I don't know, from his mouth becomes a counterpoint eligible for a wound attack. Although I tried my hardest to hit this, never succeeded. Bo kinda needs to charge up for the wound attack, and the window is really short. It seems like it needs an extremely well-timed wound attack for it to be effective. The other two monsters don't seem to have this interaction, and I imagine as we progress through the game, and we get harder versions of monsters, these counters will probably be less and less frequent or just not exist. Also for Ray, specifically, when he turns blue, he's kind of like Nergigante. Attack these blue parts to reveal fast wounds and take advantage of it. With all that said, let's get to pros and cons. I love the big lobbies. Monster Hunter is one step closer to just being a flat-out MMORPG.
Nothing about this is good. Not one thing.
I like the idea of seeing people around town that are just existing. Right now, everyone's wearing basically the same gear, but in the future, you'll see some good fits. The wound system is great, and it just feels good to hit them. Having a rideable mount at the beginning of the game will just speed up the early game, which is pretty nice. This game just has all the classics of a great Monster Hunter game, and of course, it looks amazing. But the people who have graphical errors might disagree on that one. For the cons, and the biggest issue is monsters move way too much from area to area. There are some instances where I fought a monster for a minute and then they left to an extremely far area which took another minute to get to, only to fight it for another minute and then the monster leaves again. This isn't a crazy issue if the monster just traveled to an adjacent area which only takes like 10 seconds to get to, but it becomes a real problem when they're ping-ponging all over the map. It's just too much movement and chasing, to the point where hunts feel like half combat, half traveling. Here's a breakdown from a more successful Ray hunt that seemed like a decent clear time compared to the rest. The multiplayer was okay. It took a while to figure out exactly how it works, and I kind of wish it was more clear. Eventually we figured out that we had to be in a link group, and if we wanted to roam and fight random monsters, then we need to invite all to the same environment. But you can skip all that and just link up and go to Alma for quests so you can fight Ray back to back. A more combat issue that's only temporary is that if you want to play something like Gunlance in the beta, you're gonna have a bad time.
I'm just getting flinched to shit now. I'm just getting flinched so much, I hate this.
With no flinch free, you're just going to be doing some pokes and then getting flinched by your team. And the other big issue is the UI is really clunky. It's hard to tell what you're swapping or what menu you're sifting through. only through time and frustration will you finally understand what button is for what, and what button you have to hold down to do this or that. There's also an issue with the big lobbies that while playing, you'll just get spammed with stickers from other players inside the lobby, or they're basically doing their own hunts, which is weird. I can't imagine that sticking around, but yeah, it's pretty annoying, especially when they're like spamming it. The time and weather change is also just a bit too drastic.
Can't see.
It happens instantly and will also just block your entire view for a few seconds. But even though the monsters are moving just way too frequently and the other kind of small issues, nightmare. I love this game, and February can't come soon enough. Now, I'm going to talk about bows real quick because I have always loved the bow game style and will continue to do so. I chose a different weapon for my starter, so the bow basics weren't explained to me through the game, but holding a charge fills up this bar and it allows you to exchange it either for a tracer round or coating ammo, which is really cool. I like this idea. It kind of slows down the usual bow hyper play at the moment, but when used correctly, you'll definitely get some great damage in. Also, I feel even more useful to the team because when those wound spots hit somewhere on the monster's back or wings, it's hard to take advantage of those immediately as a melee weapon. But with a bow, you can easily snipe these or multiple wound points at the same time, and it's so satisfying. The Thousand Dragons attack is a cool idea, but even with the tracer round attached, these arrows will still manage to just fly into space. The arc shot applying tracer rounds feels really nice. As time went on during the beta, I was using arc shot way more frequently to do more passive damage and get more tracer rounds in. I'm excited to see where bows go in the future because so far I'm in love. The perfect dashes feel so damn good. Anyways, tell me about your experience in the beta and I'll see you later.